When I'm driving, I do want motorists to trust me. And so if I have a daytime run, one big thing is that they can see my mirrors. They can see me looking in my mirrors in each direction, and I can see that they can see I'm watching them as they go by my vehicle. I always make sure that I give them plenty of room. If I'm going to make a lane change, signal that intent way ahead of time, give them plenty of room before I come out to instill that trust, to make sure I'm not tailgating anybody, and just make sure they know I'm paying attention to them as well, and keep both of us safe on the road.
Each year, hundreds of millions of incident-free miles are driven on our nation's roadways in commercial trucks. And that is a credit to the dedication and skill of thousands of professional truck drivers. But similar to other professions like commercial airline pilots and locomotive engineers, professional truck drivers work in a very hazardous and highly regulated industry. As a professional truck driver, it's important for you to continually hone your driving skills. That is the purpose of today's training, to help you, the professional driver, improve your ability to prevent one of the most serious types of crashes on our roadways, lane change crashes. At the end of this module, you should be able to explain the loss factors that contribute to lane change crashes, identify the most dangerous areas around your truck that are associated with this type of crash, and determine the appropriate Essential 7 driving techniques that can be used to prevent future losses. In addition, there are 5 questions at the end of this module to reinforce your understanding of the material. Unsafe lane changes pose a considerable danger to all motorists. Each crash is unique, and fault must be determined on a case-by-case basis. But for today's training, we will be looking at lane change crashes where the truck driver can be found at fault for moving his or her truck into an adjacent lane, either to the left or right, and striking another vehicle or forcing it off the road. Lane change crashes are considered one of the 4 critical crashes because of the severe losses they can inflict, including damaged equipment, lost cargo, serious injuries, and fatalities. 5 factors that can contribute to lane change crashes are frequent lane changes, meaning a driver is going faster than the flow of traffic and weaves in and out of traffic lanes. Space management, which refers to drivers who make a lane change without first accounting for all the vehicles around their truck, especially those lingering in the truck's blind spots. Poor planning is when a driver is unfamiliar with their route and makes an abrupt lane change to avoid missing an exit or turn. Likewise, distractions can lead to losses when the driver's attention is diverted away from driving long enough to cause them to drift out of their lane and possibly sideswipe another vehicle or run it off the road. And finally, following distance can factor into lane change crashes when traffic is slowed or stopped ahead and the truck driver hasn't left themselves adequate stopping distance. Rather than stop safely in their lane, the truck driver makes an abrupt lane change and triggers a crash. If you recall from our Introduction to Value-Driven Driving segment, one value drivers commonly share is protecting life. Regardless of the situation, everyone wants to get home safely. So the professional drivers we talked to agreed on 7 essential driving techniques that can be used to protect lives and prevent crashes. They are: avoid distractions, be attentive to the road ahead, react properly to hazards, observe proper speed for conditions, maintain proper following distance, maintain one lane, and yield the right-of-way. Now let's look at how these driving techniques can be applied to the various loss factors that contribute to lane change crashes. The first loss factor we will discuss is frequent lane changes. Let's face it, managing the space around your truck is a daunting task, especially in heavy traffic. You wouldn't be the first to admit there are times when a vehicle suddenly appears from your blind spot that you had no idea was there before. Every time a large truck changes lanes, it's exposing itself to the risk of a critical crash. That's why it only makes sense that the more you stick to one lane, the less likely you are to cause a lane change crash. Thus, maintaining one lane was added to our list of essential 7 driving techniques. Most of the time, staying in one lane is certainly feasible, but we both know that eventually you will have to change lanes at some point in your trip. So let's look at how to do this and minimize the risk. In this aerial view of a truck surrounded by 6 vehicles, which of the 6 do you think is in the most dangerous position? Admittedly, all are in dangerous locations, but some more than others. If you selected number 1, this vehicle should be far enough back on your left side that you could see it in your mirrors. Plus, this motorist should be able to see your turn signal and hopefully give you space to change lanes. Likewise, number 2 can be seen on your right if you use your mirrors and turn signal. Vehicles 3 and 4 are probably in your blind spot, unless you're using elliptical or fender-mounted mirrors. If you were to lose sight of these vehicles and change lanes, they could get sideswiped or run off the road. Again, not a good place to be, but not the most dangerous. Vehicle number 5 is probably in the safest position because looking out your windshield and driver's side window should reveal their location. That leaves number 6 in the right front corner. This driver is in the most dangerous position because it is not only in your blind spot, but this motorist cannot see your truck's turn signal either. If you move over and contact vehicle number 6, this could cause the car to spin out in front of you and possibly lead to secondary collisions. Here's a reenactment of a lane change crash with a car in the number 6 position. As the truck moves to the right, slight impact is made between the right front of the truck and the left rear of the car. This initial impact, although slight, is enough to cause the rear of the car to skid to the right and send it careening out of control across the front of the truck. Let's look at this again in slow motion. Notice the position of the car in relation to the truck. In this position, the driver of the truck may not be aware the car is present. The other problem that may exist is that the driver of the car may not be aware that the truck is slightly behind and to the left. The car driver will not be able to see the truck's turn signals or see the truck begin to move over. In this reenactment, the professional stunt driver in the car loses control and ends up in the median, rolling over several times. This illustrates why lane change crashes are considered critical crashes. Serious injuries, fatalities, and high-dollar claims are commonly associated with this type of crash. So we know that maintaining one lane as much as possible is the best way to avoid lane change crashes, but when a lane change becomes necessary, you need to do everything you can to ensure it is done safely. That is why failing to manage the space around your truck, especially the blind spots, is another loss factor to account for. If you think about the vehicles situated in the lanes around your truck, each of these are hazards to avoid. That's why the professional drivers we consulted agreed it's essential for drivers to be able to react properly to hazards in order to prevent a lane change crash. This can include using your turn signal whenever you need to change lanes, turn it on well in advance so you can alert the vehicles around you of your intent. Next, constantly monitor your mirrors to spot vehicles around you or approaching quickly from behind. Just remember you don't want to cause a rear-end crash by staring too long at your mirrors, so make quick glances and return your focus to the road ahead. If you suspect there are cars in your blind spots, try slowing down a bit. Decreasing speed by 1 to 2 miles per hour may create some separation and possibly expose those vehicles. However, if you suspect a motorist is lingering in the right front corner, the best way to visually verify it's clear is to use the lean and look method. With your seat properly adjusted and having proper following distance ahead, slightly lean up and look down to the right front corner of your truck. Lean and look in a quick motion to verify your blind spot is clear, then return your attention back to the road ahead and check the space around your truck. The lean and look method can also be useful in making left lane changes as well. And lastly, if it's not safe to change lanes, don't try it. Be patient and go to the next exit if necessary. This leads us to our next Essential 7 driving technique: yield the right-of-way. Never attempt to force your way into another lane and expect other motorists to make room for you. They have the right-of-way and you must yield to them. So if it's not safe and legal for you to change lanes, continue on until it is. This may be frustrating, but it's only a minor inconvenience compared to what could happen if you trigger a crash. Continuing on, making abrupt lane changes and causing a crash can be the result of poor planning and distractions. An example of poor trip planning is when a driver is unfamiliar with their route, gets caught off guard by an upcoming exit or turn, then makes an abrupt lane change without first ensuring it's safe to do so. One way to avoid this is to program your GPS before leaving. If you miss your exit or turn, the proper reaction is to stay in your lane and continue on until you can safely and legally turn around and circle back. Distractions affect your ability to perceive and react to hazards. Here's an example of a distracted driver caught on a dash cam making an abrupt lane change. Notice on the right, he has established the proper following distance, but on the left, you will see him start to mess with his cell phone. This driver was lucky to avoid a critical crash when he reacted abruptly to avoid a rear-end crash and swerved into the adjacent lane. This demonstrates why distractions can be so dangerous. It can also cause you to drift out of your lane and possibly cause a sideswipe collision or force other vehicles off the road. For this reason, we added Avoid Distractions to our list of Essential 7 driving techniques. Put your cell phone away while driving so you're not tempted to talk or text on it. Avoid eating and drinking while driving as well. Think what would happen if you started choking. Daydreaming, staring too long at road signs, or gawking at passing crash scenes are other forms of distraction, as is fatigue and stress. If you're feeling tired or tense, the best reaction to these hazards is to pull over in a safe place to rest and refocus. The final loss factor we will discuss is following distance. When traffic is slowed or stopped ahead, lane change crashes can occur when the truck driver does not give themselves enough space to slow down or stop their vehicle. In many cases, like the one we saw in the previous dashcam video, the distracted truck driver reacts improperly to avoid a rear-end crash and makes an abrupt lane change. By maintaining a proper following distance of at least 6 seconds and being attentive to the road ahead, your best option should always be to stay in your lane and come to a controlled stop. To recap, we discussed that lane change crashes are considered a critical crash because of the severe losses they can cause. Factors that increase the likelihood of a lane change crash include frequent lane changes, space management, poor planning, distractions, and following distance. To minimize the risk of a crash, drivers agreed that the Essential 7 driving techniques are the best methods a driver can use to prevent a lane change crash. These are: maintain one lane as much as possible and avoid frequent lane changes. React properly to hazards, like signaling well in advance and using the lean and look method to spot a vehicle that might be in your blind spots. Yield the right-of-way, meaning do not force your truck into an adjacent lane if other vehicles won't let you in. It's best to be patient and go to the next exit and turn around rather than sideswiping someone or forcing them off the road. Next, avoid distractions. Distractions inside the cab and out reduce your perception and reaction times and can cause you to drift outside your lane. Keep your focus on the task of driving, and if need be, pull over in a safe place to return calls, get some rest, and refocus. We also discussed the importance of maintaining proper following distance, at least 6 seconds in ideal conditions. Don't get caught off guard by slowing or stopping traffic ahead. Instead, leave yourself plenty of room to stop your truck in your lane rather than making abrupt lane changes. And finally, be attentive to the road ahead. This goes hand in hand with avoiding distractions, maintaining proper following distance, and planning ahead. Give yourself more time to react properly to hazards by staying focused on the traffic ahead, and know when your exit is approaching so you can get over safely and legally. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about preventing lane change crashes. Our learning objectives today were to define the factors that contribute to lane change crashes, identify the most dangerous areas around your truck, and determine which Essential 7 driving techniques are best to prevent such losses. We accomplished these goals and hope you found this material insightful. Now, as you leave, please take time to reflect on how this message fits into your own personal and professional values. We hope protecting life is a principle you hold so dearly that it's beyond compromise, and you will use the protective driving techniques discussed today to help prevent lane change crashes. On behalf of Great West Casualty Company, we appreciate the invaluable service you bring to our country, as well as to your efforts to be a value-driven driver. If you have any additional questions about this program, please contact your Great West Safety Services Department.